Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm busting out the DSLR camera to do some more LEGO photography, giving you some tips along the way. Now, last time I talked about lighting, camera choice, lenses, and mise-en-scène, and all of those tips still apply to this video, so if you haven't watched the first one yet, be sure to do that. For today, I'm going to use my custom LEGO Dunder Mifflin and some studio lights to do some interior shots, and that brings me to my first tip, eyeline. Now, often in photography, you want your camera's lens to be at the same height or level as your subject's eyes. Now, this isn't always the case. As you can see with these pictures of my dog Yoshi, sometimes you can shoot from above or below your subject's eyes, but for the most part, you want that camera lens to be at the same level of your subject's eyes. To achieve the right eyeline with Dunder Mifflin, I need to get my camera as low to the ground of the model as possible. That can be a little bit difficult, so you have two options. One, move the set onto a table and get it as close to the edge as possible. Then you can lower your camera tripod to almost below the tabletop. And if your DSLR lens is a little bit too big, most smartphones have a pretty good camera on them. Just make sure the lens is on the bottom. My next tip is verisimilitude, meaning the resemblance of real life. This is going to be pretty important when it comes to lens choice for this shoot. Last time I used my nifty 50 because I wanted to have that really shallow depth of field where the foreground is in focus and the background is very blurred, kind of like a real portrait lens. Essentially, I wanted those photos to feel like they were shot with a camera at the scale of LEGO. But with Dunder Mifflin, I'm in a whole new realm. Most sitcoms are shot with a deeper focus, meaning that both the foreground and background are in focus, so there can be some hijinks in the background that you can see very clearly. So because of that, I don't think the nifty 50 is my best bet here. I think my 18 to 55mm lens might be a better choice for today because it gives me a deeper focus range and therefore closer to the actual look of the TV show The Office. As for lighting, I'm using my two LED light boxes and a ring light to make a pretty unique setup. Because the windows will be visible in some of these shots, I'm going to use one light box on the outside of the model, kind of like a makeshift sun. Which brings me to my next tip, light temperature. Light can have a different color or tint to it, usually white, yellow, or blue. And if you change the temperature of your LED light, you can almost mimic different sources of light. For example, the sun has an average light temperature of 5500 to 6500 Kelvin, so that's the setting I'll use for my makeshift sunlight peering through the windows. A lot of office spaces and industrial settings use cool white light bulbs, which have a temperature of around 4000 Kelvin. So I'll use my other LED panel and place it directly above Dunder Mifflin. As for the ring light, I'm going to use that to mimic the studio lights used on set with The Office, because they didn't just use natural light, they also had set lights. I'll set that right around 4500 Kelvin and place it on the same level as my camera to soften shadows. And finally, that brings us to figure placement, or mise-en-scène, how you set your scene. Last time, I tried to make very dynamic shots with deep backgrounds, vibrant lights. But with Dunder Mifflin, the key here is to replicate famous scenes, and for that, I need reference images. I've loaded the reference images onto my laptop to compare them with my camera's view. So with our studio set up, let's take some pictures. Now that my photos are taken, I can drop them into Photoshop and make some tweaks with my last tip, editing. A really good shot should have a balance of bright and dark elements. Now, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but you should try to have some part of the frame be bright and some part be black. The simplest way to achieve that is contrast. If you just go to brightness and contrast and drag that contrast ladder up, it should do the trick. But if you want to go one step farther, pull up what's called the scope's waveform of the photo. Once you have this up, you can see the distribution of light levels. 0 to 100 is the main goal, with anything under 0 being nothing but black, and anything over 100 being what's called blown out. Most of the light in the photo will exist in that 70 to 80 range, with highlights being in the 90 range and shadows in the 10 to 20. Find an area in your frame to get it to 0. That way you have one area that's black. Don't go overboard and have the entire shadow be black, but just one small area should give you the contrast that you need. And by the way, if you're using the photo application on your Mac, you can perform a similar adjustment with the luminance sliders. For color and saturation, I want to try to match the original tonality and saturation of the office. Not too much, not too little. Again, verisimilitude. And the final adjustment is to remove some of the minifigure posing stands that I used during the photo shoot to get my figures just right. To do that, I took what's called a clean plate of every shot I was doing. A clean plate being the exact same setting with lighting, camera placement, but no figures. That way, I can line the plate and the final, find sections of the photo that I need to replace or remove, and use that clean plate to import those sections. I use the brush tool very sparingly to add back any shadows I erased. So with the editing being done, let's see the final product. So there you have it, some more tips to improve your LEGO photography. If you have any questions about photography or more tips, leave them in the comments below, and if you haven't done so yet, be sure to vote for the art kit on LEGO Ideas, linked below, and as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.